Well, this kitchen table that I've been working on for quite some time and not working on for quite some time, it seems like, is becoming a real soap opera for me. So I guess that's the way I'm going to present it. I had really hoped to put this out as just two pieces, and it looks like it's going to be 3 videos now, because I don't want to drag this out without putting something up on YouTube. I took a little time off because in the middle of building the top, we decided to go out and purchase chairs. And it's going to be another week or two before I get those chairs. And my whole intention was to be able to try and color match the table with the chairs. So I had a little time on my hands, and I just thought I'd take a break. But I'm now working on it again, and the next piece that I was going to work on, we're turning the legs and producing those up. And as I was turning the first one, my lathe motor started pouring white smoke out. So that took me pretty close to a week to get a replacement that actually worked and get my lathe back in operation. And as I was turning the next leg down, I got pretty close to being right where I wanted to be on the turning portion of it, and I hit an inclusion, and I couldn't work around it. The inclusion was buried inside of a board, so I didn't see it on the surface when I glued up the leg blanks, and that just meant I had to go out, purchase more wood, and make up a new leg blank. So as I say, there's aspects of this project that are becoming quite amusing if I look at it instead of being frustrated. So I actually started working on the apron, and that's what this particular video is going to be about, and then I'll finish up with the legs and actually putting the table together on the third video. So on we go. Well, I'm working on the length of the undercarriage rails at this point. And I know that I absolutely want them to be exactly the same length, so I've matched them up with a fresh cut at this end. And I'm going to immobilize them with a clamp, and then I'm going to cut it on a chop saw. I've got it so that it's set really nicely squared. The absolute length isn't all that critical to me, but I know for sure that I want them to be the same. And if you're keeping track, the long rails are actually going to be 50.5 inches long, which takes into account how they're going to butt up against the square legs.
You might notice here that I have a block under the left end of the boards so that it's perfectly flat.
And I'm going to do exactly the same thing with the short rails that I did with the long rails. And that the exact length isn't as important as having them the same. But what I'm aiming for is 22.5 inches.
This is just cleaning up the show face on these aprons.
So back in 1994, and the only reason I know that is because I made a couple of tables using this technique, and particularly this one here. And I always label my work with the date that I put it together. So 1994, I know, is when these prototypes were put together.
These are a couple of the experimental pieces I did in 1994.
And really and truly, the reason that I started working on this at all was because I'd had a very poor time designing and executing some cabriole leg dining chairs for a table that I had made years before. And I was then and still quite taken with cabriole legs, but they're incredibly difficult to carry out. So what I wanted to do with this particular design was find something that would kind of imitate a cabriole leg out of flat stock, which meant that it was going to have to go into a 45-degree angle on the apron, and that meant that I was going to have to find some way to make it a 45-degree angle. And this may seem trivial at this point, but it was a big deal to me back in 1994 to have worked this out on my own, that I was going to put 45-degree angle brackets on there, and the side aprons were going to have 45-degree cuts, and there were not going to be any mortise and tenon joinery here. They were just going to butt joint together. And so this is what I came up with, and subsequently it refined into this. And interestingly enough, Jimmy DiResta, I don't know, 4 weeks ago, something like that, probably in October of 2017, built a table with something very similar to this, except that he didn't put that kind of an angle bracket on. He put a flat board up there and then drove a single bolt, leg bolt in there, and he said that held it just right, and I believe him, because when you put a couple of pieces of hardwood to hold that leg in place in a configuration like this, it's basically bomb-proof. It is such a strong joint, it's just incredible. And the reason that this is trivial now is because you can buy pieces like this in Rockler, and I'm sure other places as well, off the shelf and make them up. But back then it was a revelation to me, and this is the joinery that I'm going to be using on this table. It's not going to look exactly like this because the legs are going to be turned and square in this section, but it's every bit the same, and I'm going to use that style because it's just a little bit easier to screw into the sides that way and that way than it was going in here and drilling those initial countersinks. So now that I've roughed out the apron stringers, I'm going to start refining them. So I've more or less dry assembled it here just to make sure things are going in the direction that I want. And what you see here is a template that I'm going to use for bringing the sides down. I'm going to take about an inch off the width of this so that there's just a little more lap room sitting next to it, and I want the corners to have the full 4 inches, but most of it's going to be 3 inches. So that's why I'm making this template. I'll rough cut it out, and then I'll finish it with a pattern bit on my router to bring that detail out. And as I showed earlier, these are going to be basic butt joints, and this is how it's going to set up. I'm going to take a little corner of the top of the post off, and then these blocks are going to be screwed in to the side pieces and also screwed directly in to the corner posts. And I'm going to have 2 of these, and that is an extremely durable way to put that corner together. Fortunately, it won't be seen because it isn't all that pretty to look at, but it makes a very, very good looking joint from the outside. So what you see here is I'm going to rough out this main section with the bandsaw, and then I'll use the template and a pattern bit to clean up the edges and bring it down to just the final size that I want. this is my setup for finishing off the aprons. I've got my pattern bit, and this is an interesting pattern bit because it's got a bearing on both the top and the bottom, so you can use it either way without having to switch or replace the bearings. And what I've gone and done is actually screw the template down into the back side of the apron piece, and once I do this side I'll just flip it over and screw it down there and complete the cut, and then on the next one it'll just be set up to start at that end and then go to this end. So there it is. Pretty simple way to make something that would be a little tougher. Since the long aprons are a little unwieldy for using cutting on the bandsaw, I'm going to try it with the jigsaw. I put a fairly fine-tooth blade in there, and it should make the corner pretty well. But then it all gets cleaned up. But I'm only going to take it into here, and then the rest of that is going to be taken out with a punch cut on the table saw. What I'm doing here is setting my template up just slightly differently from I did on the shorter aprons. On the shorter aprons rather, I lined the top of the template up with the top of the board, and I'm still going to do this at the very end. But what's different now is that I want to line up exactly with that saw curve or saw cut that I just put in there. So there might be a little difference there, but it's going to be unnoticeable. But what I want to end up with is all of these cutouts right here being exactly the same on all four corners, the two sides of the four corners of the table. So this is the underside of a footstool that I made some time ago, and this has actually got a hybrid system of attaching the legs, which has some stubby mortises and tenons in there, but being held together by this corner brace like I'm using on the current table build. But what I wanted to point out was this is been a method of attachment for me for quite some time, to keep the top in place but give it an ability to expand and contract during the changing of the seasons, so that these things will swing a little bit and nothing happens in it. And it's a very secure system to keep things in place. It's just that this one is a little bit clumsy. You only use scraps lying around the shop to make them, but then you have to chisel in the receiving end, and it's time consuming. So this is the commercial version of what I just showed you. These little clips right here take the place of the little piece of shop scrap wood that is attached to the top, and then in this circumstance what you do on the apron, you put a kerf, a table saw kerf in there, and say that this piece is the top, so this is going to be bolted in there, and then it's going to grab a hold of the kerf and put 2 or 3 of those in just like that, and it's a very secure thing to do. And it's certainly more expensive than what I've done in the past, but they're always sitting in a hardware store staring me in the face, so they probably nipped me for $5 for that, and it would have been a lot cheaper, but I thought I'd give this a try. That'd be a first for me, and they look like they're very, very secure. So putting a kerf into the short aprons, I would not put these in the long aprons because they would then be expanding into the joint rather than along the side of it, and that might be very counterproductive. So I only use these in the end, shorter sides, so that as the expansion and contraction takes place, these can flex a little bit.
1/4 inch deep kerf here.
The next thing I want to do is take off all of these sharp edges that are going to potentially come in contact with fingers around the bottom of the table. So all of these long sides are going to have a, I think that's a 3/8 or 3/16 round over bit that I'm going to just knock the corners off. And of course, there's always the fun of going through the grits and sanding and sanding and sanding. So, rather than watch paint dry, I'll show you a little bit and then take it off. So here you start to get some feel for what this baby's going to look like. The clip's holding the top down over there. One thing I failed to mention in using these angled brackets is that by using them, this table actually becomes a knockdown candidate if you happen to be moving. So you can just take the legs off, and it's much easier to put into some sort of a van. And as long as they're numbered and they go back to the same places, that's no problem at all. Okay, that's it for part 2 of the table build here. The aprons are looking pretty good to me right now, and in the next part, which is already started, there's going to be some lathe work and some cutting down on a jig to get the final shape into those legs. So please come on back and see part 3. And thanks again for watching. I'm Tom Stevens. I'll have something else pretty soon, I think, this time.